Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us today for our Therapy Appointment 2.0 Deep Dive. So whether you're training in the training software or you're managing your practice in TA 2.0, these deep dives are really intended just to be safe spaces for exploring and learning the new system. So our goal will be that you can ask any questions that are on your mind, and we'll try to get you answers to them during this time we have. So as we let folks trickle in, we'll go ahead and launch our first poll. So that is launched, and you should see it on your screen. We'd love to have an idea of who has joined us today so that we can kind of cater this training a little bit better to you all, the people who are here. And while you're submitting the poll, just a little bit of housekeeping. Next week's deep dive will be specifically for groups. So how to manage your practice and therapy appointment 2.0 if you're a group. And we're going to post a poll to Facebook so that you can in on the topic you'd like next. So tomorrow and vote for the subject you'd like to get training on next in TA 2.0. And if you're not following our Facebook page, go ahead and give us a follow or a like so that you can stay in the know. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end this poll. And it looks like the majority of the people who have joined us are therapists, and we have quite a few admin and billing staff as well. And it looks like the large majority is folks who are in legacy. But there are a few folks who are new to therapy appointments, so welcome. So today we're joined by our CEO, Bill Whitehead, and everyone's favorite tech support guru, Remy Gagnon, as well as Denise, our VP of Sales, who many of you are probably very familiar with. Briefly, before we get started, the agenda will be a bit of info on Migration First and Office Ally updates from Bill. Then we're going to launch into the demo. And then Remy is actually going to share some development updates with us, which is really exciting, so you can kind of hear some of the progress we've been making. And then we'll end this off with a Q&A. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Bill.
Thank you, Emily. Appreciate the introduction, and thanks to all of you who are listening, particularly thanks to you. I think you display great wisdom when you think about the fact that when migration starts, we're going to be dealing with actually 10,000 customers who may be asking questions simultaneously, but hopefully you will not be among them because you will have already gotten your questions answered via these deep dives. I'd also like to point out that we are, as we speak, we are constantly updating the new software based in part on the feedback we're getting from people like you. So please continue to submit your suggestions or bug reports. And it is an evolving piece of software, and you guys are part of the authors of it. As Emily mentioned, I'm going to mention two issues very quickly, because I think everyone's interested in them. Number one being the migration. Everyone wants to know exactly what is the migration schedule. And unfortunately, we don't know the answer to that question yet. We encountered a bit of a bump in the road in that the person that was writing the software had a team that was offshore. Our security people said that's not acceptable. We can't have any part of this software leaving United States shore. So we quickly scrambled and found an alternate person. Yo, as he goes by, is new to our staff just this week and is already plunging well ahead in producing this migration software. The main bottom line for this is that please, please, please do not go into the portal software and create a new account for yourself, because if you do so, you will miss out on the migration process entirely. The way it's going to work is that you will register when we get a schedule set up, register for a time to do it. We'll take care of the migration from our end, and we will set up your new accounts for you. You won't have to do anything on your end. Let me move on to another topic, which is Office Ally. Office Ally, as most of you know, is the clearinghouse that through which we submit insurance claims, a partner of ours. Quite recently, they announced a very significant change to their pricing policy, which, though it may not affect individual providers much, it's going to affect group providers profoundly, perhaps raising their rates by as much as 10 times, or in extreme cases, 100 times. This is not acceptable to us. So we have been absolutely scrambling in this month to get an alternate clearinghouse in place. This alternate clearinghouse will be handled differently. Instead of a flat fee per month, such as you have been experiencing with Office Ally. Instead, it's a more traditional per claim fee of 19 cents per claim. Some of you may be surprised at that figure since we advertised 15 cents earlier. What we did not know at that time is that there are what are called pass-through fees from many clearinghouses that will average out to be an additional 4 cents per claim. And because we don't like to be in the red here, we'd like to stay in business so that we can continue to help you guys. We're going to raise that rate just a tiny amount up to 19 cents per claim, billed in arrears. In other words, it'll be, you'll see. For most of you, that's going to be a very small fee, much smaller than the one you're used to with Office Ally. So I think most of you are going to want to make that switch. Well, enough about that, because we are, oh, and by the way, we are having a meeting with our alternate clearinghouse directly after this meeting, and we're going to get some additional questions answered at that time. After that, I'm going to be producing a document that gives as much as we know at this point about this alternate clearinghouse, and that will be distributed widely. Well, we didn't come here to talk about that. We came here to talk about therapy appointment 2.0, and in particular about scheduling. There's quite a lot to talk about, so buckle in. I mentioned briefly last time about the availability calendar, and let me talk about what that means. Here we have an example of a calendar which has no availability scheduled whatsoever, so all we're seeing is the appointment slots, or the appointments that have been established. It is entirely possible to schedule appointments without an availability calendar, but only staff people in your office can schedule appointments if this is the case. If you intend to have clients be able to schedule their own appointments online, then you need to set up an availability calendar that lets them know what slots are available. It's also useful internally in the office, even if you don't intend to have clients schedule online, it is extremely useful to set up this availability calendar yourself for internal use. So let's, without further ado, talk about this. We're going to set up a rather complicated availability calendar in this practice. We're going to allow patients to schedule online. First, we have two offices in this practice, a main office and a satellite office. We're going to start by setting up the schedule for the main office. And in this office, on Mondays and Fridays, the schedule is going to be a little bit different. So I'm just going to set up Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday right now. I'm going to have 50-minute sessions, 10-minute breaks. And I think it's 8 o'clock until 5 o'clock. That's what we wanted on those days. So I'm going to save that. And it has to think a bit. That's a heavy lift. So here we have all those appointments that have now been scheduled. Notice this little globe on the right-hand side. That globe means that it is going to be available for online scheduling. But we're not done because we haven't taken care of Mondays and Fridays, so we have to do a second pass through. We're going to add availability slots now. for Monday, and I'm still at the main office. I still want patients to be able to schedule online, but on Mondays, I don't start until 12:30 p.m. and I end at 5:30 p.m. I'm a little lazy on Mondays, so I'm going to be taking everything but Mondays off. Same thing. Save that. And so now we have a different set of availability for Mondays. Notice that because it started at 12:30, these slots are all going to be on the half hour. Some of you have asked how to do that. That's how. That if you start on the half hour, everything will be on the half hour. We still have to take care of Fridays, though. On Fridays, I'm going to be at my satellite office. And so I'm clicking that. And because it's a little bit of a drive in my satellite office, I start at 9 and I end at 4 because, after all, it is Friday. So not Monday, not Tuesday, not Wednesday, not Thursday, just Fridays for these. Save this. And Bob's your uncle, there we go. So now we're done, and we can see how this looks on the My Schedule tab, because it's now displayed visually. So as you can see, let me scroll down a bit so that you can see it a little better. See, we have Mondays that start in the afternoon and are on the half hour. I'm pointing with my finger. That doesn't help you, does it? Monday, we just have the afternoon. It's on the half hour. And as you can see, this is also color-coded. So we have, in green in this case, for the main office, we have our main office schedule. In red, we have our secondary office schedule. Notice also these existing appointment slots. Notice the little stripe that's on the left-hand side. That's an indication of where this appointment is scheduled. Even without an availability schedule, you can tell. You can also, within an appointment, that by clicking on this, I could also change where the appointment is scheduled for, but let's not complicate things. So right now we're already looking at one of the 4 schedules that I want to show you. This is the one where most people will live most of the time. As I've illustrated before, it's quite easy on this calendar to drag and drop an appointment to a new time slot. As you can see, that automatically opened up the availability here at the secondary office here and blocked off this hour in our primary office. We can also look at a month as a whole view. This is just going to show the appointments that are scheduled for that day. It's not going to show availability. So it's just a good place to get a broad overview. And you also have a one-day view, though I personally don't find that to be that useful. So let's talk about another view we have, another schedule we have, which is the Today view. This is mainly useful for therapists who want to be able to have this page displayed while clients may be wandering in and out of the office. As you can see, client names are disguised now. The full name isn't displayed, just initials. And but we can still, if clients are not in view, expand any view and deal with anything you need to do with that appointment, accepting payment, charting, rescheduling the appointment, all sorts of things, by just clicking on any one of these and expanding that view. I'm going to contract that back down again. Also, from within this today's schedule, I want to talk about a third calendar, which is the Autopilot. The Autopilot is a very simple view which looks just at what's going on right now. So because right now there aren't any, I'm in between appointments right now, it's not talking about anything. If I were within one of the appointments, it would actually be showing me a screen more like this. We have, I meant to have this, I forgot what time zone I was in. So I'm in the, this office, this pretend office is in the central time zone. So my appointment with CCC is starting at 2 and ends at 2:45. I could very quickly look at the prior notes from this client by clicking here, and could, by clicking this View Appointment button, edit anything that has to do with that appointment. So that's the Autopilot. That's the third way of scheduling. And finally, I want to look at what this looks like from a client perspective by clicking over to another browser here where I have, I'm now logged in here as a client, as Andrew Apple. And so you can see that under my appointments, I have this 10 a.m. appointment, but I'm going to schedule another one for myself. And anyway, this is the screen where I would do that. I'm encountering a little problem because I just updated my availability schedule and it hasn't migrated down to Andrew's yet. I'd have to log out and log in again for that to happen. So apologize for that. But basically, if this were working, if I were logged out and logged in again, I would see just day by day a list of available appointment slots, and you would just click on one of those to set up that new appointment. It's very simple and straightforward from the client perspective. And I'm going to switch back to, I'd forgotten we have yet another schedule. I'm going to switch back to here. Is that working? That's not, it is working. It's not working for me. I apologize. We're having some technical details. Here we go. Okay, so all of the schedules we're talking about thus far were involving me logged in as a therapist. But if I'm an admin or if I am the practice owner, I have the master schedule available. The master schedule, the difference between that and the solo schedule is the fact that on the master schedule I can see side by side the schedules of all the therapists in my practice. It's not cooperating with me. There we go. In this side-by-side view, we can see we have a day at a glance here. We have the same color coding that shows locations. We also see that we have both the main office and the satellite office appointment times displayed here. One enhancement that we've made to the software based on feedback from you guys is that we now have the ability to very quickly click on a name and jump directly to that person's schedule so that we're now seeing their appointment schedule, and we can easily go as far into the future or the past as we need to, rather than being limited to what shows in that side-by-side or master schedule view. I believe that's all I have to say about availability and scheduling. I hope this clarifies for you, but let's jump into some questions now, Emily.
Sure. So we got a number of questions from the folks who submitted our form. We sent out an email last night to the people who had registered. and they submitted some questions. We'll be doing this moving forward, so if you want to get yours at the top of the list, please respond to fill them out in the form next week. But for this week, the questions that we have regarding scheduling we'll start with, and the questions you all have submitted regarding scheduling, we'll start with those two, and then if we have time, we'll come back around to some of the questions regarding other topics. We'll definitely try to get to those as well.
Denise going to be, no, me?
And okay, so our first question is, can we test the Google Calendar integration in the test site now? Will it mess up our calendars if we try this? And this was one submitted online by Shannon Sadowski.
Well, I'll take care of that one. We have had some feedback regarding the Google Calendar integration that people were having an extreme amount of difficulty getting this to work. I'm not surprised, as I tried it myself. I had the same sort of difficulty getting an integration of Google Calendar. As a result of that, this is the way that it will be working, by the way, with both exporting your calendar in an anonymous fashion to your Google Calendar or your iCal, or importing your external calendar, such as your Google Calendar, into therapy appointments so that it will show up as just another layer in your calendar, the one that you can turn on and off. I don't know if you're aware of how layers work, but I'll show you very quickly. So here we have an example of two layers. We have an appointments layer that we can turn on and off, which will just show availability, or turn availability on and off, so it will just show appointments. If you do have the Google Calendar integration in, you will have a third item here, which will show your personal calendar as another layer that you can turn on and off. Now, how do you go about setting this up? Again, right now, it's extremely difficult. And we got that feedback from you, and we are scrambling to improve upon this. We have a fix in place that will be really just a one-click integrate my Google Calendar and just about nothing else to do, which is so much easier. This is something we had to get written permission from Google to do, and we had to supply some documentation. It's been a rather long process. We are confident that within a couple of weeks, we will have that available to you, so please hang on until then. And setting it up now should not interfere with your setting it up later in the easy way, although frankly, I'm not 100% sure of that. So finally getting around to answering your question, the answer is I don't know for sure.
Okay, and later on, we're going to have Remy share a few of our updates. So moving forward, you'll be able to join these calls and learn about when things like Google Calendars have been updated and added and improved and things like that. So our next question comes from Cheryl. Since I'm an administrator for a group, will I still have the same access to calendars as before?
Yes, as I illustrated, if you're an administrator of a group, you should have inside of your privileges this front office section of the calendar, which allows you to do things like look at the schedule for all therapists, look at clients for all therapists. We're something to talk about this topic in general. In the legacy system, we had a rather awkward method where you had to log out and log in again to be able to access various functions. If you were an administrator of an account and also a therapist, you had two separate accounts. You might even have three separate accounts if you were also a supervisor. All of those are now subsumed into one account, so you'll never have to log out and log in again. But if you are both a therapist and an administrator of a group, then you will have this front office section and will be able to access features that the other therapists will not be able to access.
Okay, great. So now we have a question for Denise, our VP of Sales. She's going to kind of walk us through a little bit more training on this. The question is from actually an anonymous attendee, but it was, I take a 30-minute lunch, so I book on the hour from 9 to 12, and then in the afternoon, I see patients from 12:30 to 5:30. How do you recommend handling that kind of schedule setup?
Sure, I'll be happy to answer that. So that's a pretty common scenario for many of us. Maybe we have appointments on the hour in the morning and the half hour in the afternoon. So when you are working with your schedule and changing your calendar settings, you will be able to edit your slots. If I were to clear this availability slot right now, I can go ahead and add slots, and I can basically say I want to start and end on Mondays here and in the morning between this time, and then I can then go back in and add availability at those half-hour slots early. So if I were to say start and end 8 to 12 here, okay, 12 p.m., and then I want that to happen Monday through Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and not on Saturdays. And this is where I can set my session length. So, so if you only have 45-minute slots, let's say you want to start at 45 minutes out slots, this is where you'll be able to edit that length of time. I'm setting mine up for a typical hour in between patients. Okay, so I would be able to save this, and that's going to give me availability for the mornings. I can then add availability slots, and then I'm going to change this, and let's go with 12:30 p.m. to 5:30. That's probably more likely what we're going to do. So here's my availability slots, so I'm going to add those in the afternoon. Okay. So now we have that set up so that I have appointments on the hour in the morning and appointments on the half hour in the afternoon. Okay. Hope that answered your question.
Perfect. So Denise, while you're answering that question, there's another one that kind of goes along with that. So the question was, what do all of the colors on the calendar mean?
So our calendar is very colorful. You'll notice that this background color, the blue, this is about your availability. So since I just changed my availability to have some lunchtime appointments, you'll see that I have some white space. If a patient were self-scheduling, they wouldn't be able to self-schedule into that time slot. I could also put a block in there for myself and call it lunch if I wanted to. But this background is also related to the office that I'm working in. So if I work at more than one location, then I can have this background. Let's say Fridays I'm at a totally different location. If I were to go set that up on my schedule right now, then I could have this Friday background show up in, let's say, pink. Okay. And then when patients are on my schedule, they're going to start out similar to our legacy program does, as blue in color. Then as you go through the day and take action on that schedule, for example, if I were to take payment on that patient today, it would turn it orange. In the old system, it turned it yellow. Orange is closed. You couldn't read yellow very well on the schedule in this one. And then as I write my note on the patient or start writing my note, it turns green. So this is just a visual look at where I'm at in the process, just like Legacy System gave us. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you, Denise. So we would like to set up a webinar at some point in the very near future to address administrative specific questions, but there are quite a few, of course, that have to do with scheduling. So we'll tackle some of them here. A question from Tiffany is, will the front office staff be able to schedule intake appointments and then assign them to a clinician?
So you're going to have a master schedule available here. And when you when you are setting up a new patient, or if you put the new patient in, the nice thing about it is I can see availability right from this master schedule. And if I would like to take a look at a particular patient or therapist schedule, all I need to do is click on that name and I will have their weekly calendar or monthly or daily calendar in front of me, and I can see the name listed right here on that schedule. But if I am looking for a particular therapist availability to put a new patient in, and let's say that that's going to be maybe later on this week, and if you'll notice, I have this available as to different locations. I have this practice set up to different locations. I just haven't added availability times for each location yet. But I can take a look at what's available, and maybe I would like to go ahead and put a patient in with Jill Wicker. So what I'll be able to do is say, if I don't have the client in first, I'll need to add that client into the system by clicking Add New Client. And if I'm going to do that, I'll be able to choose who that client is going to be seeing. If you don't know that at the get-go, you may want to set up a triage account like we kind of have similarly in the legacy program as a holding place. If you're a large practice, that might make sense for you to do so. But if I'd like to click on Jill, I can go ahead and get that patient entered. So let's just say that it's Donner. And I'm just going to add a patient in real quick, and you have my email. Okay. And Don is this old, and I'm just going to say schedule appointment. Okay. So then it's going to allow me to choose. So I'm going to put that particular patient with. I'll be able to filter that out. Let's say that I want to get them in with Jill Wicker at 8 a.m. on Friday. So I'm able to set this up as a 90791 diagnostic evaluation. That's the first session, okay? And in my particular system, I have those scheduled for 90-minute slots instead of 60 minutes. So I'm going to say, yes, I want to schedule that for a 90-minute slot because that's how I do it here. And then I'll be able, if I want to edit the time or session length, I can do so, or set it up as a repeating appointment. So I have that particular patient scheduled now for Jill on the schedule.
Awesome. Okay, so along the lines of managing the times on the schedule that patients can actually schedule, we have a question from Alicia that is, what if I want to start on the half hour but have 45-minute sessions?
So just where we were looking at earlier on your schedule, then you would be able to, in your calendar settings, and we'll go ahead and we'll just clear availability. But if you would like to start on the half hour and have 45-minute settings, so I'm assuming what that means is maybe you're going to start at 8:30 in the morning as your first session, and then every 45 minutes from there. So you'll be able to set that up with your availability calendar and your slots. I'm just going to say my start time is going to be 8:30, and then I'm going to have my session length be 45 minutes, and maybe I'm not taking a break in between it all. So this will allow me to have 45-minute slots back to back on the schedule.
Okay, wonderful. Now we have a question for Bill. So will the Outlook calendar be able to be linked? The Outlook calendar be able to be linked in TA 2.0?
Great question. We have the ability to establish two kinds of links. One of them is specific to Google Calendar, which is by far the easiest to set up because, again, we've now established this relationship with Google that allows us to have a very quick link. But you can also export in a universal format that's called iCal, iCal may imply that it's specific to Apple, but it's actually a standard that Apple created and is now used universally. And iCal can be exported to all sorts of different devices and structures. In the case specifically that you're referring to, though, it might be a bit more difficult in terms of synchronizing. That I'm not clear on. We haven't actually looked at Outlook Calendar in terms of synchronizing. It's possible that you're going to have to manually synchronize rather than having that happen automatically.
Okay. So we've gotten a few questions about how to set a lunch break. Denise, would you like to walk us through a lunch break?
Sure. So to set a lunch break, I'm able to go at the top here and say set new appointment. And who am I setting it on? I'm in this master account that I have access to all the different therapists here. So if I were to go ahead and select that, and you know what, maybe if Bill could take over on this one, because I did my availability on my calendar, I cleared it all, I'm going to have to go set that up.
I was just about to volunteer that.
I just realized that. I was like, whoops, I just
Saved
did
you.
that all.
So let me see if I can do that. Let's see. Here we go here. So as you can see, I've already done this in this calendar, but let me illustrate how I went about doing that. So here we have a recurring appointment. I'm going to make it more complicated. We saw an illustration earlier by Denise of how you could create a set of morning appointments and a set of afternoon appointments. And you can certainly do that in terms of setting up this availability to limit it to just mornings and afternoons with a break in between. However, I think that that's kind of difficult in our system, and it also loses some flexibility. What if, for example, someday you want to have lunch at 11 and see a client at noon? It's much more difficult to do that. So what I've done instead, and what I recommend is an easier way to do this, is to set up a recurring appointment. This is already set up, but I'll see if I can go ahead and edit it now. So I'm going to cancel this. And cancel all future appointments since this is recurring. And this is going to take a while because of the way that we have this set up. It now has to go through all history. So bear with me while it does that. So now we have just our appointments. And as you can see, we have no lunch break now, except for this one date that I forgot to cancel. There we go. Okay, now we're back with a clean sheet of paper, as they say. So here we have our availability calendar, and as we can see within this calendar, we have lunchtime available, so where now clients could conceivably schedule right into your lunch break online. We don't want that. So what we're going to do is set up a recurring meeting. The meeting name is lunch. We're going to add details now because we want to make this a recurring meeting. The meeting abbreviation is also lunch. It starts at 12, ends at 1. And we're saying it's going to repeat. It's going to repeat every one day And it's going to end after, let's say, we'll just do it through the end of 2020. I'm just picking an arbitrary time. And I think that will do it. By the way, this message that just popped up is, unfortunately, it's when it scheduled the first of those appointments, it automatically said, wait, I'm conflicting with myself. So we're working on that. That bug has already been reported to our developers. As it's now setting up the appointment times, it's conflicting with itself, but we'll have a fix for that in place. Now, as you can see, we have now blocked off lunch for every day. If we look at the, if we get rid of the appointments layer here, we'll see that sure enough, that is not available now for online scheduling. Now, an advantage of doing it this way is, again, if I say, gee, on Monday, or let's say on Wednesday, I'd really like to move my lunch up to 11 so that I can see a client on Wednesday during the lunch hour. It's just very easy to do that. I just shift that upward by dragging and dropping it. And there we go.
All right, so we have one question really left about scheduling, and then we're going to get a quick development update from Remy. And then after that, we'll follow up with some questions from the community about other things that are not scheduling related. So this question is from Mary Hardy, and she asks, would a therapist in solo practice likely just use the master schedule view for simplicity? And I'll throw that out to Denise and Bill, whoever wants to answer.
What do you think, Denise? Would you like to do that one, or would you like me to?
I'll be happy to. So if I'm a solo, what I heard was you're a solo provider, then that master schedule just won't even, it won't matter. It'll be one and the same there. It'll just be you on that schedule. So it'll make it pretty simple there. And I realize that I am in a screen that is, sorry, okay. So master schedule is going to show everybody in my office, but if it's just me, then my schedule is where you're going to live most of the time. Okay, me and my clients.
I'll add to that everybody, we have a variety of ways that you can schedule or reschedule people. For example, that new button up in the upper right of the screen could also do it. But by far, the easiest way, in my opinion, is to use this My Schedule screen, just because it's so easy to visually see what your day is like when you do it that way.
Okay. Also, false alert, guys, we're going to answer one more scheduling question that I just found from Amberly, and she asks, in Legacy System, I can add a one-off appointment on a day I'm not normally scheduled. How do I do that in the new system?
That's really simple in the new system because although this colored area is telling my clients where, limiting my clients to schedule, online schedule within that, I can schedule anywhere in my system. So if I want to put a patient in on Friday morning at 7 o'clock, I'm just going to click in that slot and put my client in at 7 o'clock on Friday.
Wonderful. And Denise, could you show us quickly how you would delete an appointment as well?
Sure. So let's go ahead and delete this appointment we just made, and I'm just clicked on top of it, and I'm going to click cancel appointment. And I have some options on that. Most of the time it's just going to, in this case, I just said it, I can just cancel it off. So I'm just going to save that, and it's going to remove from my calendar.
All right, lovely. We will let Rim give us a quick update on the roadmap and what the development team is working on.
Hey, this is Remy with Therapy Appointment. So I spoke with the developers. We're in close contact on a daily basis and communicate. So a couple of things that we do have on the roadmap here. I know people are very excited about telehealth and telemedicine. That is something that is on our roadmap for development. Along with the Google Calendar integration, we want to make it really easy for people to be able to integrate their calendars. And we are planning to make it easy with a one-click. You log in with your Google account and it's synchronized and added to make it very easy. We're also polishing up availability. I've been in close contact with our developers, and we want to make this easier for you guys. So we're working on ways and techniques to make it a little easier with some minor improvements there. What we're currently working on, if you're familiar with the 2.0 system, we had a couple of issues with invalid links. That issue is being resolved and has been resolved. We're no longer getting issues with that. Also, we're improving the Find a Therapist search. There were some issues with the search functionality with that, and we are working on that. There was one more with diagnosis codes not being saved to the chart, and that is something that we are working on. That is a critical thing that the developers are working on actively right now. And that's it.
All right, thank you, Remy. I'm going to add just a couple of things to what Remy said. And to elaborate on the time schedule, most of what he has talked about should be knocked out and uploaded and a part automatically of your therapy appointment system within a couple of weeks. The exception to that is the online therapy, which will probably be several months down the road. We're investigating some vendors for that currently and looking at various technical aspects, and above all, ensuring privacy in that and HIPAA compatibility with that new feature. I'll add also that along the same lines with the online therapy, many of you have asked for improvements to charting templates and paralleling that to be able to have forms that you can send out for your clients, for intake forms that your clients can fill out, that will have things like drop-down menus or check boxes or fill in the blanks that could also be signed and returned. That was on our original roadmap to be released with this version, but it turned out to be a more daunting task than we had originally anticipated or scheduled. And so we've put that off probably just a matter of a few months past launch. Although it's easy to do that, the thing that's difficult is making it easy for you to do that because it's the interfaces that we found on standard products for creating templates and for creating intake forms was just not acceptable to us. We have to find an easier way. We have some ideas. It's just a matter of implementing that. I think I will mention along those lines, people have asked for things like, gee, I'd like to modify the biographical information form. I'd like to delete some questions, add others. I'd like to create my own form specifically for my population of clients. All of those things are going to be possible, and you'll be able to have a starting point, for example, with the existing biographical information form, just modifying it rather than having to start from scratch.
Wonderful. All right, so we have a number of questions that are not related to scheduling, and we're going to try to get through as many of those as possible right now. So we're going to start with one from Rick. He says, based on the training site, it appears as though claims status information is displayed differently in 2.0. Can you describe the chronology of claims processing in the new version?
And Emily, if I could take that one, I would would love to. So in the new version, under billing and insurance, you're going to have a claim status view here on the right-hand side, and you'll notice that we're color-coded with scrubbing problems, ready to submit, submitted status, or rejected claims. So before you had to go kind of in a back page to find that. We're bringing that right front and center if you click billing and insurance, or if you're a practice owner or manager, it's going to be right on your dashboard screen, the same thing. So when a claim is created after I've seen a patient, it is queued up for submission. And you'll notice that in green we have ready to submit 1, and there's a view right over here. It's also brings my attention in orange here that I have claim ready for submission so I don't miss it. These things in this orange color are things I need to finish up. I haven't turned on my 2-factor authentication in this particular practice account yet, and it's warning me. This is warning me, hey, don't forget, you've got some claims ready for submission. So just like Legacy, you're able to just let those claims gather up, and I just send them out at the end of the day. So if I would like to take a look at those claims that are ready to submit, I'll click View, and here it is. It's right here, and you know, there's nothing I need to do it. It's cleared the club. Wow, I can't say that. It's cleared the claim scrub check. And what that simply means is we reviewed it and we don't find anything wrong from our end on it. Okay. So if I wanted to take a look at that claim, I can do so right here. I could also edit anything. If we did find something wrong, we would have it up here in red and tell you that, hey, you don't have a diagnosis code on this particular claim, for example. And I would be able to go and edit it on this particular form. I could change it right here. So we have all these places you can make an edit right on this page. Also, if you want to take a look at your 1500 form and what it's going to look like, it's right here. Take a look. And if it says you're missing something in a particular box, you're able to look at the form here. So let's just go back to billing and insurance. And if I want to submit that claim now, I'm just going to go check mark it just like before. If I don't want it to go out and I have a list, okay. And here we go, submit selected claims. So now that's in submitted status, okay? So it's been in that status. And if I want to take a look at that, I can view all these submitted claims. I've prepared you some views here of real situations with the names blinded, but this is what it looks like in my personal account right now of all these claims have been in the accepted by the insurer, okay? And if I want to look at a particular claim and click view, then I can see where this claim has been at in this whole cycle. So it had a claim scrub problem. We created a new claim from it. We cleared a claim scrub, it queued for submission, it generated the file, submitted to processor, and the insurer rejected it. So we were testing all sorts of things in the beginning, and this is one of them, and it said I needed to complete the payer address information required. Okay, so everything's going to be here and available for you, and you can dig and dive deeper and to see exactly what was listed. So in this case, this is one that's been submitted and in process, and I can see all of the content that comes back from Office Ally here. If there were anything I needed to pay attention to or I needed to prove that they got it, it's going to be right here and available to me. Okay, so it's a pretty slick system. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I keep forgetting that I'm on a screenshot here and not in the real system, and it's not going to do anything if I click on it. Anything that's rejected, I'll be able to view and fix right from here. And then I have a look at a total of what's outstanding in claims. So if you ever want to know how much is out there I'm waiting on insurance for, this is pretty much it that is in this process. Okay.
Great. Okay. We have about 5 minutes left, so we'll power through a few more. One from Carrie is, when canceling an appointment, will administrators have the same options as providers? i.e., can we put in a quick note for the provider as to the reason for cancellation?
The answer to that is yes. So if I am canceling an appointment here for John, then I will be able to say cancel appointment, and do I want to remove it from the calendar? Yes. And I can put a note in here as to why the patient is canceling this. Okay. And if I need to mark it as a no-show or charge a fee for that and make a chart entry, if I want the therapist to make a chart entry into it, then I have all of these options. So I think this is really slick for your administrators to be able to write that note and cancel that appointment.
All right. And another question from an anonymous attendee is, how many different locations can be set up?
I want to grab that one because I'm really proud of it. There were limitations in the prior version to how many locations, how many therapists could be displayed side by side, how many addresses you could have, how many phone numbers. Almost all of those limitations have been eliminated across the board. Specifically to your question, how many locations? Yes, there's an infinite number of practice locations that can be within a system, limited only by your ability to continue typing.
All right. We're going to go back to the Office Alice stuff that we kind of addressed at the very beginning, and we got a question from, oh, my computer's, okay. We're going to skip back to a question from Katie that was, she is ready to quote unquote move it out of the dark ages and start accepting credit cards in TA 2.0. So how will she do that in TA 2.0?
It's very similar to the system that was in place for the legacy system. We do continue to use KN as our integrated credit card provider. I think they've just renamed themselves once again. TSYS, and KN is now a subsidiary of TSYS. But basically, you'll establish an account with them. The one change is that whereas before we had to manage entering the information in the legacy system that was given to you by KN and enter that in, now we give you the responsibility of entering that information in yourself, which is a bit more secure. It just makes a lot more sense that we, in this system, in the 2.0 system, will never be privy to that information, which may put your mind at rest.
Okay, and we're going to combine two questions for this last minute that we have here. One from Andrea, which is, which clearinghouses are we considering switching to? And then another from Carla that's related to clearinghouses that says, with the 19 cents per claim, will there be a charge for ERAs coming back in?
Let me answer that first one, second one first. No, the clearinghouse that we are currently in negotiation with is giving us a flat fee for a single claim throughout the life of that claim. In other words, if we submit a claim and we get information back repeatedly about the status of that claim, it will still be all within that same single 19-cent fee. In other words, it's only a claim that you submit that will be subject to that. Some of our competitors, as you may or may not know, do charge extra for every single message that comes back and forth. And so their quoted rates are a bit deceptive, whereas we are saying, no, it's 19 cents for the entire life of that claim. Now, I will say that if you were to have to submit a corrected claim because the first one was incorrect, that will probably be an additional 19-cent fee. But again, if we look at most of our providers, they are submitting 20 to 30 claims a week at a high volume because some of them are cash patients and so on, that I think for almost every customer, our new clearinghouse is going to be significantly more economical than the other. Regarding which clearinghouse, we are currently in the final stages of negotiation. We actually haven't signed the contract yet, but we're 99% sure, but I'd rather hold off until we are at 100% sure before answering the question of which clearinghouse. They have let us know that they are a national clearinghouse, and in terms of their coverage, they are able to handle every major insurer. And if we have, some of you may have experience of being with a self-insured company, for example, that accepts electronic claims, but is not on, it's not one of the big insurance carriers. With enough advance warning, we will be able to add them as well. That may take a couple of weeks if it's a very obscure carrier, but they have given us assurance that they will be able to accommodate any insurer.
Wonderful. All right, so I know that we have a number of questions that we did not get to, and we are going to do our best to get you answers to those questions and get them posted up to our blog to make sure that you get the information that you're looking for. But we do want to thank you so much for joining us today. We're at the end of our time here, and we want to be respectful of your schedules as well. So thank you for joining. Thank you, Bill and Denise, for leading the charge and answering those questions. And Remy, we are so happy that you could join us today as well. And thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you, Emily. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Emily. Bye.